We're joined by Mr. SMU himself, Haynes Strader. Thanks so much for jumping on today. Really appreciate you making the time. Excited to tell your SMU story. It's a great one. If you would, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate you having me on. I'm Haynes Strader. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Skybox Datacenters and graduated from SMU in 2011.
Awesome. So a lot to cover today. You've had a really fun, vast career in a short period of time, right? And a lot of that ties back into SMU. I think you're one of the best examples I know of a personal friend who's the power of the SMU network has helped you, but then you are giving right back to it in the amount of time you give back to the school. But before we can even get to that, you're from Raleigh. How did SMU get on your radar? How did you pick it as a college for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was actually born in Dallas. My dad was at Trammell Crow Company out of college, and so he and my mom lived here for a while. And he moved to North Carolina to work for what was called Security Industrial Trust, which became Prologis. So we moved to North Carolina back in the early 90s. Grew up in Raleigh. And I came to SMU because I really wanted to go to Wake Forest, and I didn't get into Wake Forest. And I got into a couple other good schools, but they were bigger schools. And my dad was very encouraging that I should look at SMU. It was similar size to Wake Forest, and he felt like that might be a good fit. And I was like, Dad, I don't really want to go be a pastor. That's not my path. And he's like, no, go to Dallas and check it out. I had no idea what I was getting into. Nobody from my school had gone to SMU before.
Wow.
And so I went and visited, and just fell in love with it within 5 minutes. I literally went by myself the first time, and the cab dropped me off at the Meadows Museum. And I'm wandering around the Meadows Museum, like with my bags.
Right.
People, the security guy's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm trying to get this KA. Really nice guy, David Perrin, was coming to get me, and he was like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in the Meadows Museum." He's like, "Where is that?" So he came and picked me up, and we had a great weekend. And I met a lot of really fun people, and then I came back like 2 weeks later with my parents and did like the formal tour and all of that. The campus was beautiful, the women were beautiful, but I think everybody I met was just genuinely like energetic and on a mission to do something, whether it was fun or athletics or academics. And it felt like a meritocracy, and I like that kind of environment. And so, that was how I decided to go. And I was lucky to get in when I did, because I don't think I could get in today. But it was great. It was probably the most impactful decision on my life that I've ever made.
Yeah, it's incredible how those work out, from not knowing anything about the school, and then 2 visits later, it just feels right. How much did you know about the school after you kind of had made those visits? Did you know, okay, it's got a really strong business school. Obviously, your dad's in real estate. Maybe he knew about potential, DFW as a growing market. Where was kind of your head at coming into school? Or is it, I want to be an attorney, or kind of blank canvas and let's figure this out?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was very into the show Mad Men that had kind of come out around that time. And I wanted to go be Don Draper. That was kind of the idea. I wanted to sell stuff. And so I got into the advertising school in Meadows. And then I loved poli-sci. And that was the other idea, was go get into politics. And so I was a double major, poli-sci and advertising. And I did one internship in DC, and quickly realized I didn't want to be in advertising.
So you quickly realized maybe advertising wasn't maybe the ideal path, but you're in Dedman College, you're getting your poli-sci, and politics is a real idea for you. We know of you now as a real estate development side. How impactful are those soft skills you learned, maybe not knowing what you might do long term, but how those impacted you? And talk maybe on, also, you're on the Dedman board. You've been involved with that board for, I think you're already on like 13th year, 14th year, something crazy.
Yeah.
What's advice do you have for those younger folks who maybe think the importance of those soft skills that you learn in Dedman College, and no matter what you choose career-wise?
Yeah, for sure. Advertising, I didn't love the industry once I went and like interned in it, but I loved the art of the sale. And that's that's what I learned in advertising school in Meadows, was
Mhm.
just how to sell things and how important it was to have a good team. Two of my teammates, my senior year, you do campaigns and you have to really create an advertising campaign. And we did one for Interstate Batteries. And the people on my team were my current wife, Christine, who's a creative, Sterling Barrett, who started Crew,
Yeah.
Opti
Yeah, yeah.
Sunglasses, and has had an amazing career, and
Yeah.
then me. And all I had to do was sell what they made, and
Right.
so it was a really fun experience. And I realized I liked sales, but I didn't want to be in the advertising business specifically. What I learned in Dedman, and particularly in both political science school, but also just a lot of the liberal arts classes that I took, was that I think relationships are really important, and being able to build relationships with a diverse set of people takes having knowledge across a wide array of topics and having interest in a wide array of things. And politics is quickly something that will quickly turn people off in a conversation. And so,
Wow.
being able to understand different points of view, learn how to, I learned how to navigate arguing more politely. I was pretty hard nosed when I got to SMU, and
Yeah.
I was surrounded by people that were smarter than me, that had strong opinions about things, but were much more articulate. And even if I was right, if they articulated their point better, they would win. And so it was this concept of both confidence and kindness,
Uh-huh.
and understanding, that I think I really learned at SMU, and it really helped me. It softened me a lot in a lot of different ways that I think helped me in business, but have helped me in a lot, in a lot of things, and with a lot of my personal relationships.
No, that's really well said, and I think we'd be remiss to not mention your involvement during your time in campus, right? You were involved with your fraternity, but you were also involved with school projects. You were the SMU student trustee your senior year. How impactful was that stuff, starting to get involved and grow the network and start understanding all the aspects of the school that are so important and can play a role in your future?
Yeah, I think leadership the leadership activities that I did at SMU were probably the most impactful thing that I did. Joining a fraternity was the most impactful thing, just socially for me. And
Uh-huh,
as I was a
uh-huh,
member of SAE, I'm now one of the advisors. It was a great group of guys. They're still my best friends, and um, I learned a lot. I had a lot of leadership opportunities. I was a rush chair. I was a
uh-huh,
new member educator, and was just always kind of involved. And I really enjoyed that. And that led to, at the end of my sophomore year, I was elected the IFC, the president of Interfraternity Council,
uh-huh.
and that was a great experience. It was a very tumultuous time. KA got kicked off like my
Uh-huh.
first week, not by me, but by the administration. We had to go through this process of reassigning all of the freshmen that were stuck in this kind of wonky
Uh-huh.
position. Um, and it was not fun, and it took a lot of work with the administration, with the various fraternity leaders, and you know there's a lot of different stakeholders in that process, and you have to get to consensus. And so I learned a lot, and I also made plenty of mistakes. I went into some offices and yelled and shouted and was immature, and
Yeah.
learned how to not negotiate. And I mean, I vividly remember walking into it was Dean Webb, Lisa Webb, who was the dean of student life at the time, and I can't remember what the issue was, but I went in and I mean, I think I yelled at her, and um, I mean, she could have expelled me. I mean, it just was
Uh-huh.
not okay. And I left the room, and she sent me she said, Haynes, take a deep breath. You're going to come back and we're going to redo this meeting tomorrow, and it cannot go like this. And I went home and I was so embarrassed. I really just remember that deep feeling of
Oh,
embarrassment, that, man, I can't believe. But she gave me a do over. And in real life, you don't get a do over ever,
right.
And so that was a huge learning opportunity for me that has stuck with me my whole career. And don't, emotions aren't necessarily helpful in business negotiations. And so, it's been that was a big piece. Funny enough, Dean Webb was actually one of the people that really helped me get through the student trustee process. And so I
Um,
came out on the other side of that with a really good relationship with the administration, and had the opportunity to get chosen as student trustee my senior year. And that exposed me, the SMU board it's 42 or something like that, of the most impressive people, some of them on the planet, but certainly
right.
in Texas and definitely in Dallas. And
Mm.
um, to have exposure to people like that at 21 years old, and to be taken seriously, and be given space to voice your opinion, but also to you get to, as student trustee, you get to sit on two of the three most important executive committees for the board. So legal, which deals with a lot of really sensitive issues. And then you get to pick one, and I picked student affairs. But that that raised the bar of what I felt I could accomplish in my life. Like, I was surrounded by people that had achieved amazing things, were giving their time back to SMU, cared a lot about the university. And I recognized, hey, like, if I go apply myself, like, some of these people it's not that, like, it's amazing what they've accomplished, but it's doable, it's achievable. Like, he's
Right.
standing right here talking to me,
Yeah.
and I think Dallas has that attitude generally. I think SMU definitely has that attitude, but people, if you're justified, people will open the door and take a meeting, take a coffee, share their life story. And like, I spent a lot of my time that year getting to know the board members and keeping up with them after I graduated, just picking their brain on things. And I've only used it a couple of times, but over the course of my career, there's been 2 or 3 moments where I've had to make kind of a big pivotal decision. And I've called my dad, and then I've called 3 other people, all of whom were on the board at SMU
Wow.
when I was there, and they've been great life coaches for me. But I try not to abuse that, but it's been
Yeah.
really helpful, and it's changed the course of my career many times. So I think that was a really cool experience. And for students, I think recognizing that you've got this 4 years at SMU, you can make mistakes, you can figure stuff out. It's a great learning experience to take some risks. You can run for office and lose, and you'll learn something from it. But
Wow.
you can win, and it can be great. And I ran for student senate and didn't win
Mm.
my sophomore year, and then I got IFC president right after that. Um, but those, I don't know, those experiences really helped me grow as a person. And when I got to the professional world, I was not afraid to speak my mind. I wasn't afraid to have a differing opinion. But I knew how to do it politely and respectfully. I knew how to kind of negotiate to an extent, and I learned a lot of that through leadership stuff at SMU.
So, I mean, through the roles you played, it seemed like politics might be a perfect place for you to go, right? Or, I mean, you're very interested in helping the school and being involved. Tell us a little bit about your career journey and why Teach for America maybe was the ideal place to start, and a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I actually had a job lined up right after college, and I visited Patrick Kobler, who was
Hmm.
he had been student body president the year before me, and he was a good friend. But he went and did Teach for America in the Rio Grande Valley, and I just talked to him a lot about his experience, and it really changed. I don't know, it just something stirred with me that, hey, this was an opportunity to go give back.
Wow.
I had never, I don't know, I'd spent most of my life doing things for myself, and I hadn't really
Right.
focused on people other than me. And so Teach for America was kind of a neat. So I changed my job. The guy I was supposed to go work for actually wrote my recommendation to TFA. That's how awesome, and another SMU person.
Well.
But the what really helped me get into Teach for America, because at the time it was very competitive. The recession was going on. We were it was 2011, so we were a couple of years, coming on the rebound. But you
Hmm.
couldn't get a job in real estate to save your life, much less,
Yeah.
a lot of other finance and all that stuff was tight.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, so it was kind of a good opportunity to go learn something different. But I one of my pledge brothers from SMU, his grandfather was on the board of Teach for
Hmm.
America for Dallas, and then Kelly Compton was SMU, who's an SMU trustee, was also very involved in Teach for America, and they both helped me get to know a guy named Charles Glover, who
Yeah.
ran Teach for America for Dallas, and he and I just
Right.
really hit it off. And so when I got in, I was excited, but I also got to stay in Dallas, and I think that was a huge. I probably wouldn't have done it if there were only a couple of places I would have been willing to do it. And so I taught in Arlington, Texas. I taught sixth grade English for 2 years, and I went in there very much still loving politics and all that. And I was like, I'm going to
Hmm.
go fix education in America, and
Right.
it's going to take me,
Right.
I don't know, 3 weeks, and just a bunch of 12-year-olds kicked my ass for 2 years.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm still really close with a lot of those kids. It was 150 kids a day, and it was a total. I remember Googling what an adverb was, like, as I was walking into my first day of so I was
Right.
not well equipped to be a teacher necessarily, but I had a lot of energy, and those kids knocked it out of the park. We were the highest performing sixth grade English class in our district,
That's awesome.
with an uplift both years I was there, which was great. So I had a really good experience. I loved Teach for America. It helped me it showed me I had never been to public school in my life. K
Mhm.
through college had been private,
Right.
and to have an opportunity to just see, what the world looks like. And I was still in a charter school. I was in a much cushier situation than a lot of folks that do
Yeah.
TFA. But um, you know, the amount of adversity people have to overcome when you're coming out of poverty, when you're coming from really rough backgrounds to be successful and to
Uh-huh.
just to make it, the amount of breaks that have to happen just for it to work it's astounding, and it's hard. And there's a really one of the things that struck me as I got out of TFA and just access to like a small amount of credit can make a huge difference. And if you're $150 behind on your rent or your car payment or your insurance, like it starts compounding really almost violently, like against
Uh-huh.
someone. And when you're living paycheck to paycheck, like that can be really hard. And I saw that problem when I was in Teach for America all the time. And I never did anything about it. But George Utkov, who was my little brother in SAE and
Uh-huh.
was a SMU grad, and he was also student trustee a couple years after me. Um, he's now at a company that's doing credit cards based that are financed. They come off of they take the equity in your vehicle and lend against that. And so it gives you, like, if you need a $300 line of credit, like you basically have a line of credit against the equity in your vehicle. And it's really a game changer
Yeah.
for people that have a hard time accessing credit, and they don't do predatory interest rates and stuff like that. So it's a very reasonable payback if you're late. And it's cool. It was cool for me to see that. I invested just a little bit, but I invested in that company. But for
Yeah.
George to figure that out on his own and have, actually create a solution for that, I thought was pretty neat. And they're doing really well. Jordan Miller is another SMU grad, as a
Yeah,
partner over
that's
there.
Yendo, right?
Daniel
Yeah.
Ashley. Yeah, Yendo,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. It's so cool what they're doing. So you do the 2 years, Teach for America, and you have a great perspective on the world you're seeing. What kinda was your next steps? Where do you think you were gonna go? How did it kind of evolve into a career in real estate?
Yeah, I wanted to go to law school. That was the goal when I went into TFA. Was I had good scores. I had good
Mhm.
LSAT scores, but I had pretty mediocre grades. I was like a 3.4 or something, maybe a 3.5 when I graduated. And so to get into the type of law school I wanted to get into, Teach for America was the idea would help kind of elevate my resume. By the time I got into my second year of TFA, the last thing I wanted to do was go back to school. I was itching to go work. I was working in a
Yeah.
school. I just gotten out of school. I didn't want to be in school anymore. And so I took literally the very first job that anybody offered me, and I did sales at a research firm. And I didn't love it. But it was good. I learned a lot. And I liked sales. I didn't love the business that we were in. It was a good company. It just wasn't for me.
Uh-huh.
And so I took a step back. I stayed a year at that firm, and then I took a step back over the summer, and I just kind of met with everybody. I took like a month off, just met with everybody that had been helpful to me, and that included a bevy of people from SMU. Um, and just, what should I do? Where should I focus? And of the most of the people that I met with that I kind of most relate to, that seemed they were in their, you know, 40s, 50s, maybe early 60s. They were happily married, had a good family, had good lifestyle, seemed to have good income. Those guys were consistently in real estate. Like, I just noticed like a trend, at least of who I had access to. A
Yeah.
lot of those guys were in real estate. And I was like, that's kind of where I want to be when I'm 50 years old. Like, that seems like a good goal. And so I kind of quit focusing on like the career and more of who do I want to be most like, and I should probably do what that person did. Like, that was kind of became my model. And I
Yeah.
had a boss that I didn't love at the job that kind of right after TFA, and I made the commitment to myself, like, I'm not going to work for somebody that I don't want to be like when I grow up again.
Mhm.
And I've stuck to that very much so my whole career. But so then one of those connections, Tom Leiser, who was SMU law grad, great guy. Um, he helped me get connected to a bunch of different real estate firms. And I took a job at CBRE basically as an intern in what they called the Wheel program. And I got to rotate through a bunch of different groups. And I was one of my best friends from SMU, Gordon Kellerman, was over at a data. He had just left his job to go to this data center company, Skybox. And I got
Mm.
to meet him and his boss, Rob Morris, who's the founder of Skybox. Um, and I was like, man, I want to come work for you guys. And Rob was like, A, I wouldn't pay you anything, and B, like, you have no skills, so no. But you should go meet the data center team at CBRE. And he introduced me to Brant Burnett, who's an SMU grad, and Chris Herman, his partner. And we just hit it off. And Brant and Chris are perfect examples of people that they were in their, that when I started, they were in their 40s, and they were exactly what I wanted to be when I was their age. Like, they
Right.
were fun guys, they had great families, they worked hard, they were successful, and they were really nice. They're just kind-hearted, good people, Christian people. And I was like, if I can be half as cool as those guys by the time I'm their age, I will have made it. And so I started working for them. They allowed me to kind of force a rotation in with them. Blair Oden, who ran the Dallas office at the time and is now over at Texas Capital, was hugely helpful in like helping me kind of be flexible in how the wheel program worked. And so I ended up in there
What was
for
the data center industry like in 14, 15?
it was there. So Dallas was a big market, but it was much smaller. And that was kind of the other thing that attracted me to it, is there weren't very many people doing it. And so it felt like I could have more of an impact more quickly by just working hard than if I did the same thing on an industrial team or an office team, which was definitely the sexier, cooler thing to do. But they're Brand and Chris were great guys, and they needed a junior, so that was part of it. Like, there was this opening. But the other thing was, like, I grew up playing video games and loved playing computer games and
Yeah.
you know all that kind of stuff. So I could relate to I can relate much better to somebody that's into Star Wars than I can somebody that's into the Mavs. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't name two players on the Mavs to save my life. Love going to the games, but this is not me.
Yeah.
And the so it was just kind of a good fit. But the data center market was Dallas was a big market, Northern Virginia was a big market, Phoenix, Arizona, uh, Chicago, and then San Francisco. Those were kind of the big five markets. And but it was, I mean, cap rates were 13% if you were selling. So there weren't asset sales. Everything was being
Wow.
done at a platform level. You had groups IPOing. Um, you know, there was a lot of telecom that had been kind of converted into compute. And so, but there's a lot of what happened was, like, in the early, so this was 2014, like in the early 2010s, Digital Realty and Cyrus One, which were really the first big public wholesale colo operators, and then there was Equinix, which did retail. They became kind of accepted as a landlord to large customers, banks, telecom companies, healthcare
Right.
groups, and oil and gas. Cyrus really started in the oil and gas industry in Houston. And so that market had just really started in the early 2010s. So I started like 4 years into this third party colo business really taking off.
Uh-huh.
And it has just grown and grown and grown. And I mean, today it's just insane what's happening. The market is basically doubling year over year, and it's the scale is crazy. There's been to put it in perspective. I was talking with Bo Bond and Anthony Bolner yesterday, and Bo's at Cushman Wakefield, Anthony's at Stream Data Centers. The over the last 3 years, there's been $130 billion of development announced and leased,
Oh my gosh.
just in data centers just in the United States. And
That's
that's just a
unreal.
staggering, like, that hasn't happened in any other industry or in any other real estate asset class ever, in the history of the world. And so and that's just in the US. So it's just
Right.
crazy, the scale of what's happening. And we're very lucky to be a part of it. But
So you have a
yeah,
great set of working partners at CBRE. You have some amazing tailwinds. You're very thoughtful in how you think about structuring your career. You know the person you want to be and kind of that end result, and surrounding yourself with those folks, right? And you'll work hard to ultimately achieve that if the circumstances are right. You teased a little bit with Gordon and Rob at Skybox early on. What ultimately, you know, allowed you to decide that you were going to leave CBRE and join Skybox in a bigger role?
yeah, it was a hard decision. I had gotten a lot of offers from different firms and really had never taken much seriously because I was really happy at CB. and I really enjoyed my team. But I had had the opportunity to transact with the Skybox team on several occasions. We had bought a building from them. I had worked on some leases with them, and then I got to represent them. This is the last deal I did at CB. I got to represent them and sell their Houston asset, which was a big deal for them and for me. And Brand and Chris, partnered with me on all that stuff, which was great. But I had an opportunity in 2018. I got introduced to, I connected with Prologis and Mary Lang over at Prologis, actually at the Waste Management Open in Phoenix, and we met. And I, told her, I said, "Hey, you guys have more real estate than almost anybody on the planet. You've got to have some good data center properties in there. I'd love to help you figure out how to monetize that
Uh-huh.
for higher and better use." And that turned into kind of a 2-year experiment where we went and maybe, I guess that was 2017. We really kicked it off in 2018, but we went and studied 5,000 properties around the world. So Asia, Europe, and the United States, and South America, Latin South America. And um, out of that, and we had a big team that we kind of assembled at CBRE to do that. And out of that, we identified, call it 100 properties globally that we felt were really good targets. But and working through it with Prologis said, "Hey, I think we should find a development partner to do this with, at least for the first couple, and make sure we like this business before we kind of jump all the way in the deep end of the pool." And so we ran a process to help them find the right partner. They picked Skybox in North America and Yonder in Europe. And so I had an opportunity that created an opportunity for me to go over to Skybox and really see that through. And,
Mm.
that's been a really successful relationship. We now have 7 projects with Prologis, and it's been a hugely mutually beneficial relationship that we've grown a lot from. And I think, Prologis is now building its own data center platform as a result of the success of some of that. But they've been a great partner. And so that, uh, but that opened the door for me to leave. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
have done it if it wasn't, it meant a lot. It still means a lot to me for that to be really successful for both the Skybox guys and the Prologis guys. And so it's been an amazing opportunity, and
Great.
that's what drove me to do it. Was the only way for me to really responsibly make sure it worked was to
To be there.
participate in it and
Yeah.
really participate in both the risk and the hopefully the reward.
So tell us a little bit about Skybox, the kind of the origin to where it is, what you guys are doing today, and your role within the company.
Yeah. So Skybox is 10 years old. They started the same year I went over to CB, and Rob Morris and Travis Young co-founded it, and then Gordon came over to run sales, and they kind of built the Formula One car of the data center business. Kind of what they built this amazing product, and they while they were honing that product to really be that, they did 4 or 5 buildings that all were very successful. But they were using primarily clubbed family office capital,
Hmm.
some of which you'd be familiar with here in Dallas. Um, I uh, I was on the other side at CB, seeing this inundation of capital trying to get into the space, but not being able to find partners to do it with. And so I saw this opportunity for Skybox to really go partner with more institutional capital, do greater scale. And by the time we kind of partnered up, the F1 car was ready for the race, right? Like they had perfected it to the point that it was ready. And so
Yeah.
the timing really worked. Skybox had consciously made the decision they wanted to go to the next step and really grow. And so it just was a natural partnership. We we went on a closing trip after one of the deals that we closed, and Gordon and Travis and Rob and I and all of our wives, and wives or girlfriends. Not everybody was married at the time, but we all just got along really well, and our
Yes.
spouses got all of those girlfriends became wives, so it's kind of good. Like it all worked out. But all of those people have been. I mean, it's a family in some regards, but we're really good actual friends, and we happen to get to be business partners as well. And so I've 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 had a blast being here. But my role is really site selection. I help raise capital for our projects, help manage that capital once it's raised, and then I partner with Gordon on all of our sales and marketing. But Gordon's really the lead there. And so I do kind of some development. My title's a little deceiving because once we actually start building things, I'm the least useful person in the room, and so I hand that over to the experts. But we've got a great team of development and construction guys here that work really hard, and an unbelievable marketing group, and the team's grown. We're about 30 people in the development company, and then our operations business is growing. It's I think we're around 40 people today on the ops side, but it's a great firm. It's been really fun to be a part of its growth.
And are those tailwinds still as prevalent today as they were when you first started? What maybe one last question before we let you go is kind of what keeps you up at night and kind of your biggest worry as you phase into you know decade number 2 here with Skybox.
Yeah, I think the biggest worry is keeping up.
Right.
It's the scale of what we're tackling is crazy, and this isn't unique to Skybox. This is an industry wide. What artificial intelligence requires to deploy at the kind of scale that the 10 largest technology companies in the world are investing in, um, the amount of infrastructure and everything is massive. And so I think it's just really important that we remain agile and are able to capitalize properly, are able to meet our tenants where they need us. Working with these really large companies, the Amazons, Microsofts, Oracles, Googles, Metas, those are the largest data center users in the world, and we get the opportunity to interface with them often. That the standard that they expect and that they deserve with the amount of money that they're investing is really high. And so the key is scaling responsibly and
Hmm.
making sure that we can meet our customers where they need us and that we're delivering good outcomes for our clients, for capital, and for the utility providers that we partner with. That's super important too. And so I'm really excited about what the future holds. I think our industry has a tremendous amount of growth ahead of it. But if you're interested in the business, there's so many opportunities. And if you look at just go to a Amazon job board and look at the amount of roles they're hiring. A lot of our competitors are hiring like crazy. We're small, so we don't hire a lot of roles, but we do have occasional openings. And I think really excited about kind of what the next 5-10 years looks like. But it's going to change the way the world works. I mean, what
Yeah.
artificial intelligence is doing is, and that's not us. We're just the plumbers at the end of the day in this business. But the way this technology is going to transform your day to day, it's going to transform medicine. It's going to transform travel. It's going to transform a lot of different things. It's already happening, but it really the thing is like we're still at the tailgate to this thing. Like the game hasn't even
Mm,
really started yet.
yeah.
There's only 15 or 20 purpose built artificial intelligence data centers operational in the world, or in the United States today. And so, next year that will be hundreds. And so just the amount of compute capability that's going to come with that as these facilities open up and the servers actually turn on, and and you're seeing it if you use ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these different uh, tools. What you could do 6 months ago and what you can do today has transformed dramatically. And so we're going to
Right.
continue to see that in so many different ways, which is going to be cool.
Yeah, incredible. Well, Haynes, we know you got to run to get some more sites built based on the traction we're seeing. But thank you for making time today. You're a great example of the power of the SMU network. Not only what it can do for you, but what you can give back to it and how it returns itself. So thank you for making time. We'll catch up in a year or two and see where Skybox is as this landscape continues to shift. But thank you for the time, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thanks for the opportunity, Mitch. Pony up, man. I'll see you.
Thank you to our incredible sponsors, Security National Bank, Hilltop Property Tax, Mignon Steakhouse, Sound of a Rose Podcast, and the SMU's Cox School of Business for making this all possible.